Okay, so it is a very, I don't know, I want to say important day, but it's an interesting day because this is the first day of me being in the new place. So, very excited about that. I really loved my little one bedroom. No, it wasn't that little. A one bedroom apartment I had right on the beach there. However, it didn't give me enough room to do what I want. Anyway, so now I'm in here. Where did it go? I've now moved to this little house. Three blocks from the beach. A little farther from the beach, but 3 blocks is still pretty good. In any case. So, you guys are going to have to tell me how things are going. I just barely moved in. In fact, I wouldn't even say I moved in. I just got my computer set up so I could do this today, and we'll see if we can get other stuff going. So, what are we going to talk about today? Today we are going to talk about the last and final door that you have to walk through in order to exit the matrix. And this is coming from personal experience, not only in my life, but working with students. See, here's the thing. I lay it out for you. I let you know exactly what you can expect when you really start to gain awareness. And I let you know what to expect with me. And what you can expect is if you work with me, and probably with any other thunder type of teacher. A thunder teacher is somebody who isn't necessarily somebody who teaches using thunder. It's somebody who brings transformation, who transforms the unconscious mind so that you are able to be completely conscious of your thoughts, your feelings, your intentions, and to see through the illusion to be able to take action to create your exact reality. This is what a thunder teacher does, regardless of what his or her specific techniques are. When you work with a transformational teacher, and let me just make it clear, there's plenty of teachers out there who have a lot of great things to share and teach. I learn from a lot of them just like you. And many of them are really wonderful, and they teach things that are easily digestible. But when it comes to this last door, they don't always give you the profound information that you need. Because in order to escape this, like the god Odin has done, to be able to die to yourself. This isn't Christian, and it's not even, I wouldn't even say like, New Age or Buddhist, dying to yourself. It's not dying to your ego in that sense. It's dying to the illusions within yourself. And it is a death. And this is the last step. Now, somebody can physically die and still not have died to themselves, in which case they have to come back. Well, I shouldn't say they have to come back. They choose to come back. They have to come back from our perspective. Let me just tell you this. If you don't accomplish this one last task, from our perspective, you have to come back. But that's because most of us are trying to escape when we're in the flesh. When our spirit is released and we're infinite, we're not thinking in those terms at all. And in fact, we want to come back. So that's why I say that nobody's forcing you to come back. You choose to come back. When you're 100% in the spirit realm, and you're operating, you're not encumbered by human brains and human emotions and human, failings and all that kind of stuff. Then what happens is that you have the ability to then see, what this matrix is, and you choose to come back because there are things that you want to experience. And so understand that what the soul wants and what the human brain wants are sometimes two completely opposite things. And we're going to get into this, but this is the final thing. The final test to be able to not only escape the matrix, but also to be able to die to yourself and to be able to have the ability to create and manifest your life exactly the way that you truly want it to do. At some point, you are going to have to do the opposite of what you think is the right thing to do. There will come a time when you will be forced to make a decision, and if you are able to be aware of the fear-based virus loop that is part of this, if you're able to do that, then you will be able to take action completely opposite from what you think you understand. And this has to become a habit, because it's not just something you do once, although there may be a pivotal point when you finally do it and you take that opposite action, which then creates a whole new timeline for you. But sometimes you have to get out of a pretty deep pit you've put yourself in, so you have to continue to take opposite actions for a while until it kicks in. So I'm going to be talking to you about that. And what's important to understand is that, like I said, when I work with students, I tell you from the beginning, even, if you watch my videos, I have told you from the beginning exactly what you can expect. But just because I tell you, you are going at some point to be challenged to die to yourself, and you'll have to do the exact opposite of what your fear wants you to do, the opposite of what your unconscious mind is programmed to do. When you are in that moment, you won't know that that's what's happening. When you are in that moment, you will be thinking to yourself, I'm doing this is the best choice for me to make. And what ends up happening is if you have a teacher in your life, then your teacher will become your enemy in your mind. And I can't tell you how many times this has happened. I keep telling you that this is what happens and this is what to expect. And this is why for students that work with me one-on-one, I strongly encourage that they never take any unilateral action on their relationship with me. Because it's my job to be able to hold the mirror up to let you know whether or not you are in one of those fear virus loops and you think you're making the right decision and you're not. It's important that you come to me and tell me that whatever feelings that you're having. And then you still have to act. What ends up happening is people sever their relationship with me, thinking that they're saving money or thinking that they've seen me for my true self, or I've somehow disappointed them either through direct action with them or just because they've seen something in me or I've changed or these kinds of things. And I can't tell you some of the things, some people just, will say things like, you're different or I don't feel connected to you. And some people just outright call me all kinds of horrible names. Now, it doesn't hurt my feelings because that's my job, is to be the teacher. I know at some point that may happen. It doesn't happen all the time, but it might happen. And when it does, my job is to say to you, good. Now you see me for what I truly am, even if they're projecting something that's not true. I let them have it. You see me for who I truly am. But now can you stay with the teaching and stay with me and do what I'm suggesting? If you're able to do that, that is the beginning of you learning how to take the opposite action. When you're in the illusion, you don't know you're in the illusion. And so that's why it's helpful to have a teacher, because if you try to do it on your own, your illusion will pop up and you won't know what you're looking at. You'll think you know what you're seeing, but you'll be seeing your fear being projected onto the screen of the matrix, and then you will act according to that. Now, I am not any different than you. I haven't reached some plateau or level where I don't have to go through that. In fact, that's just not how it works. Right up until the moment that you die, there is a chance that you will have to continuously face that illusion that you project onto yourself. in the beginning I showed you this, where I'm obviously there's a different background. You can hear the sound is different. The lighting is different. I'm going to have to do a lot to, make my studio work for me. But what I've finally been able to do now, bear in mind, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I was living in a cabin in North Idaho with zero money, tons of debt to my name. I just lost everything in a divorce. I was physically in a lot of pain, and I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea how I was going to survive. And I did the opposite of what you would think to do. And I holed myself up in a cabin and I just started writing all of this. I started unloading all of these teachings into the books. And if you want to see them, you can go to michaelwilliamdenny.com right there. You can see the books. The majority of those books were written when I was in that state. And I started teaching this teaching that I'm doing because that's the way for me to live it. The way for me to live things is to teach it. The best way for me to learn something is to teach it. And so now here I am, just a few years later, and if you knew where I lived, you would know how expensive it is and how unlikely it was for me to go from being hugely in debt, in a lot of pain, with only $500 a month to my name, if I was lucky. To go from that to this, is pretty impossible. And when I, it's not pretty impossible. I mean, you guys can do it too. But when I was applying for this place to rent this house, the the landlord, they have to look, because I work for myself, so that I have to show them how I make money and where money comes from. He went on about, wow, I'm really impressed that you were able to put this together so quickly and to do this and to make money doing it and all that. But the only thing that I've done, I haven't taken, I've looked at all of the internet marketing courses and all of that stuff. None of those things have ever worked for me. What I'm teaching you here to do, what I am teaching you to do in order to, what we call escape the matrix, is also all you need to do to be able to master it. And I'm telling you, just before you are going to make a big leap, you are going to be tested. You're going to be tested by your own unconscious fear-based loops. And if you respond to the fear, then you will trap yourself in the fear-based loop. Don't get afraid. It's not like going to hell or, Christian hell or something like that. It's just part of the deal. There are times when if you continue to take action on self-centered, fear-based stuff, then you end up in a really bad place. But most of us oftentimes do 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So if you make the mistake, it's not going to destroy your life. But in order to stay in that place where you continue to grow and continue to manifest what you want, you are going to have to get in the habit of learning how to do the exact opposite. And if you can teach yourself how to do that, then no matter how frightened or how scary or how dismal things look, when you take the opposite action, you will then continue to be able to, it's like another door that you've exited out of another, level of the matrix. Okay? So I'm going to go on and on and on about this, but first thing I want to do is I want to go over the 5 rules. Now this is, see now I'm starting to see what's going on here. The sun is setting, so now I see I got these weird little, so I have to set up my my studio here as time goes on. Anyway, by the way, I didn't show you, did I show you the house? Here's the house. This is 3 blocks from the beach, Southern California, great surfing, 3 blocks from downtown, beach city, bars and sushi bars and restaurants, and I can walk down the block for a couple blocks and get food all hours. And I don't have to drive anywhere. I can walk to the grocery store, walk to the beach, ride my bike to the beach. So it's pretty fabulous. But here's my little house. 2 bedrooms with a garage and a little sacred area that I'm going to create for practice and meditation. I'm going to be able to do some tutorials where I can videotape doing tutorials for specific qigong stuff and energy work stuff, and we'll look at other things that we can do here. So I'm finally able to do all the stuff that I want to do. I don't have to use my living room as my garage, which I was doing. Anyway, so let's continue. So let me take a look here at the 5 rules of the matrix and see if I can put something over that so I don't have that in my face. So here are the amended 5 rules to master the matrix, and then we'll talk about how to get through that final step. Okay, sorry about that. Here's what I want to do. I want to do this. Okay, I'm just going to have to live with it for the time being. Okay, so let's see. Let's take a look at the first one again. I know that we did a video on this, but it's actually, I think, the most popular video that I have. But we're going to walk through this again. It's been slightly amended, so let's talk through it. Okay, number 1, perhaps I'm not going to say the most important. The most fundamental thing you need to know is that you have created the matrix. Understand, again, it's important to keep reaffirming, fundamental teachings. You have to sometimes be reminded over and over and over until it gets in there. So this goes along with the understanding of assumptions. Remember, you cannot think clearly if you have inaccurate assumptions. The majority of our assumptions that are inaccurate are created out of fear, not ignorance, but fear. If you have been programmed into thinking in fear-based ways, you are going to create false assumptions about yourself and the universe and your relationship to the universe. And if you have a false assumption, then every conclusion, discovery that you make after that assumption is going to be built on top of that, which means that they will also be inaccurate and incomplete. It might be partially accurate, but they're going to be incomplete because your base assumption will be wrong. So, for instance, one of the most base assumptions that we have, which goes into a lot of these teachings about the matrix and about, all kinds of other things. Base assumption that we have been programmed with in our Western society is that God the Father hates you. He sees you as an evil, sinful person, and that he cannot tolerate you. And so therefore you are sinful and you are going to hell. Now, you may not have been born in a religious family. You may not consider yourself religious. You may hate religion. It doesn't matter. Our Western society has this assumption built into it. And you have been programmed with this assumption deep in your unconscious mind. Unconscious means you are not aware of it. So you can look me in the face and say, I absolutely don't believe that. But it will still be there on an unconscious level, meaning you're not aware of it. That is an example of a false assumption. So that means every conclusion you make after that is going to be incorrect. So therefore, that belief that God hates you is the same as life is misery, that you are a victim, that you're born into this world and horrible things happen to you. We see horrible things happening all over the world, and or you yourself have lived through very challenging traumatic things, and so therefore you build on top of that assumption that the world is an evil, dangerous place and that you must be on guard all the time. You are a victim. That's what most people have been trained to believe. That's why we have giant supermarkets. That's why we have supermarkets filled with so much food. I mean, if you think about it, you take it for granted, but take some guy who has lived in the Amazon, who was a tribal Amazon, doesn't know anything about modern society. Pick him up and put him in a supermarket, and he will probably die from the shock. There is just so much food, and how did all this food get here? Now, for him to live, he lives on a day-to-day basis. He goes out and hunts and gathers for his food every day. In order for him to survive, he has to believe that the jungle will provide what he needs, which is why he worships, whatever animal gods or whatever gods, fertility gods, because by worshiping them, he's saying, provide me with the food that I need. We don't have that. We have to create supermarkets filled with food. I mean, an ungodly amount of food, because we need to have far more than what we need. We don't want to have just for today. We want to have food for the next, and people sometimes buy huge freezers, and they pack them full of food, right? We want to make sure that we have all the stuff in case something goes wrong, because we live in a scary, right? So this is the mindset. So the assumption I'm trying to tell you is that getting rid of the fear means that you created this matrix. It didn't create you. God did not create you. You created God. You created yourself. And therefore, if you created yourself, that means you created your matrix. You created your life. And if you start with that assumption, that you created your life, then whatever problems you run against, that means if I created it, I can uncreate it. So the question is, how do I do that? Obviously, the majority of you listening to me don't have the awareness to be able to change your reality like that. Okay, now that's an issue. I see how I'm creating negative stuff in my life. Boom, I'm going to change and create something different. So that takes some training and some learning, but it can be done. But it starts with the base assumption: you created the matrix, which means you can uncreate it or you can change it. All right, so that's number one. What's number two? Okay, I misspelled it. I said the matrix is designed. I meant to say designed. I did this at the last minute, putting this together for today. Anyway, the matrix is designed to help you exit. All right, so that's another assumption that's going to go completely against what you've been trained, what you've been taught, and if you've started with a negative assumption, which most of us have, then that's going to go completely against it. The matrix was designed by you to help you exit. It's like sitting there waiting, wanting to help you. It's got all the keys and the stuff and the secret this and the passwords and everything that you need in order to exit the illusion and to have everything that you want, and it's waiting there for you. It's designed to do that. So that's an assumption. You have to, if you're going to do this and you're in a victim mentality, if you believe that the matrix is an evil place, if you believe that there are beings out there that want to suck the life force out of you and they force you to be reincarnated and they're going to lie to you and all of that in order to keep you trapped, if you have that as an assumption, then it's going to be hard for you to take action on the idea that the matrix is designed to help you. So that brings us to the next one, I think. Let's see. What did I say next? Okay, so the matrix rewards you for fearlessness. That, here's the thing about trust. It's another word for the matrix rewards you for trust. This is not the same as the Christian have faith. It's not, you're not waiting for God. They don't even believe that. If you believe I have faith, and everything blows up in your face. And, well, I still have faith in God, and the whole thing of Job. God is allowing the devil to curse him and put boils on his body. And Job refuses to say anything negative about God. That's not what we're talking about. What did I say? Number 3, the matrix rewards you for fearlessness. So trust. You have to start from an assumption of trust. Trust that the universe is going to take care of you because you created it. So you wouldn't have created a universe that wouldn't take care of you. You wouldn't do that. Nobody does that. That doesn't make any sense. So you created it so that it will take care of you. But the only way that that happens is if you act from fearlessness. Fearlessness says, well, I know what I'm supposed to be. I know what I want. I'm conscious of my soul desire. And I know what desires I have programmed within me in order to accomplish in this lifetime. And so because of that, even though what's right in front of me says I can't do that, I'm going to act as though I can, and I'm going to take action, which means, going and signing that lease, or, taking that job, or packing everything up and moving, or, starting that business, or doing the thing you think you don't have the resources to do. If you have been able to determine what your true soul desire is, which is a whole other subject, then that's all you need. To have that knowledge, even if everything in front of you says that you can't do it, you do it anyway. If that means you're going to put yourself into debt or whatever it is, or quit that job or lose that relationship, you take that action because you understand that the universe rewards you when you take fearless acts towards your true soul desire. So you have to operate from there. Now, what happens next? What's the next thing? So remember, the matrix punishes you, quotes, for fear-based action. So the truth is it doesn't punish you. You experience it as you're being punished, meaning, I can remember hearing, I've said this, and I can remember friends saying this. I've done everything and everybody else gets it and I don't, and I work my ass off and nothing ever works for me. That is a sign of somebody who is trapped in fearful actions. So every time you take an action out of fear, trying to protect yourself, like, being afraid there's not enough food and going to the grocery store and buying, a 6 months worth of food and trying to stuff, frozen turkeys into the closet. I mean, eventually things are going to start stinking up and, none of that food is going to be edible. And I'm going to have a fly problem and a bug problem. And maybe, the city inspector is going to come, or who knows what. I'm going to, hoarders. This is what hoarders do. People who have, they stop the car because there's a broken, toy in the street, even though they don't have any kids, or, and there's just, that you can't walk around their house because there's nothing but stuff in it. There's no room anywhere. That's because they're operating from fear and they don't trust that they'll ever have what they need, that the universe will provide them for what they need. So they're trapped in a fear-based loop. People who, grow up living in trailers, and then they win the lottery and they win $20 million. And then you hear from them, 5 years later, and they're completely broke again. How does that happen? It happens because they act out of fear, or they get wrapped up in a fear-based loop and they lose everything. They feel as though they've been punished. So the universe is designed to respond negatively when you operate from fear. And really what that is it's not operating negatively at all. What's happening is that the universe is designed to respond to you when you are coming from your soul desire. Again, we can talk about what it means to have a soul desire. When you're operating from your soul desire, and you take positive action, the universe says, great, this is what you said you wanted to do, and you told us to have an infinite number of resources there for you as you went along. But it also says, when you take action based off of fear, which is going against what you truly want, when you go against what you truly want, or you do what it is you think you want when in reality you don't, and you go after that, the universe says, I don't have permission to support that. So it's like going to the bank and saying, I want, it's like going to the bank and saying, as long as I do X, Y, and Z, I want you to give infinite resources to me, and you have a blank check from the bank. If you go to the bank and you're not doing X, Y, and Z, the bank says, we have infinite resources for you, but we cannot give that to you because you instructed us. Here's the contract. You instructed us to only give you resources when you do X, Y, and Z. You're not doing that, so we can't give you anything. And you continue to not do X, Y, and Z, and you get nothing from the bank. Your experience is, why are they doing it to me? Why won't the universe support me? It's because you aren't taking the actions you said you wanted to take before you got here. Okay? Now here's the big one. This is the one we're going to be talking about. Final one is that repeated actions in fear create a fear virus loop, as I call it. But what it means is that it gets you trapped into a false projection of reality. And what happens is you start to project from your unconscious fear a false reality, and you can't tell the difference. You can't tell the difference between your false reality and the true reality. And so what ends up happening is that you misinterpret everything. Now, you see this with me. When people sometimes, troll my channel, and sometimes I react out of, this is my limitation. I react out of my sensitivity, and I'll get into a flame war with somebody. Now, there's a good chunk of times that I do that, and I'm misinterpreting what people are saying. It happens all the time, like if I'm texting a girl or something like that. I'll totally misunderstand. This is why I hate texting. If you want to talk to me, call me on the phone. Don't text me. Unless it's to tell me what time the movie starts, or you need me to pick up, groceries or something. Other than that, don't bother texting me if it's a personal relationship. So, I forgot what I was saying here. The fear virus loop creates a false reality, and you won't be able to tell your false negative projection and the true reality. And when you're in that, it's very hard for anything or anybody to help you. And the universe is sort of on pause. It's like going, well, when you're ready to stop doing that, we'll be here to help you. Until then, we can't. You told us not to, so we're not going to. And then you can continue to create, this illusion, and it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. And, you end up on the street, you end up homeless, you end up drug addict, you end up, whatever it is. Those are the result of those fear virus loops. So what we're going to talk about today in depth is that last final test that the universe gives you, which is built into how the matrix works. It's built into it so that you get to this final test. And if you are able to take opposite action, do the exact opposite of what you think you're supposed to do, the most fearless action you can imagine, then what ends up happening is that you get all of those resources. And then you have to continue to do that. It's important to understand, for us to continue to really talk about this, we have to talk about the unconscious mind. So the unconscious mind, this varies from person to person, but if you're somebody who has had difficulty in life, if you're somebody who has struggled financially, if you've struggled in relationships, if you've struggled with mental and emotional health and balance and satisfaction, there's a good chance that you grew up in a dysfunctional home. Now, for those who grow up in these dysfunctional homes, They are not programmed properly. Ideally, and of course everybody is dysfunctional to one degree or another, but some of us are more than others. I'm one of those more than others, so I know what I'm talking about, and I know what you're going through. But ideally, what is supposed to happen is as an infant is born and it goes through, being a toddler, energetically, the parents are supposed to reflect back to that child their power. So that when they grow, and because a child is operating fully from what we would call the unconscious, they don't have the conscious mind yet. They are just pure instinct, and they energetically are receiving all kinds of programming and information from their parents. This is why, parents who say, do as I say, not as I do, what do the kids do? They do exactly what you do, not what they say. My parents used to smoke cigarettes, and I grew up, by the time I was 10 years old, I was smoking cigarettes. I'd get in trouble for it. They'd punish me for it, and they'd tell me that I shouldn't do that and blah, blah, blah. But, they could tell, but I was following them. I was doing what they did. So I smoked cigarettes. I don't do that now, thankfully. But that's the idea, is that kids, regardless of what you say, especially from toddler up, they respond energetically. So if the parents do not have the ability to reflect back to the child their own inherent power, then that child will create all kinds of unconscious assumptions, fear-based assumptions. That's why you have some people that have far more emotional problems than others. Another good example is, what is the name of that show? The music where you go and you sing the music like The Voice. There was one before that. But I remember watching those American Idol. That was the first one that came out. I don't watch them anymore, but I remember watching them, and I've shared this before, but it's a perfect example. You will have all of these contestants, and among those contestants, there will be one or two that are like brilliant, artistic, genius musicians and singers. And as they're going through the competition, they're blowing everybody out of the water because these are like real genius artists. But what you'll find out is that a lot of them have really dysfunctional, like their mom's an alcoholic or their dad died of drug addiction, or, they don't have relationship with their parents anymore. Or they were abandoned as kids or orphans or something really horrible like that, which is probably part of the reason why they're so genius, because they have all of these deep emotions that they can tap into, which, is very helpful for artists. But what will happen is, as they're coming to the final, and you think that this guy or this girl is going to win, what will happen is all of a sudden they will start screwing up. And they will forget the words and they won't show up, or something will happen. And you'll hear the judges go, I don't know what is happening to you. I really wanted you to win, but based on that last performance, I have to give it to so-and-so. And then sure enough, the mediocre or the pretty good one ends up winning, but not because of their raw talent, but because you see, watching the show, that their whole family is in the audience with the billboard saying, "Good for you, Johnny, we love you," which means we don't care if you win or not. We still love you no matter what. You are the best that you can be, and you can be anything you want, and we support you. That kind of environment tells people that they're worth it and it's okay, and so therefore they're able to go and pull it off. But the little guy, the I say little, but the person who grew up in the dysfunctional family, who's the genius artist, who was never given that positive reflection back to them, they sabotage it because they don't believe they deserve it. All of that other stuff. Those are the people that are going to have the hardest time, and that's a perfect example. They get right to the edge, and then they have to do the exact opposite of what they've been programmed to do. And that is the hardest thing to do. And it is inevitable. You will have to go through it. So anyway, I don't know if I explained that the way that I wanted to, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a short break here for a couple of minutes. I'll come back and see if there are any questions, and then we'll just take it from there. So uh, give me a couple minutes, and I will be right back. What am I looking for? Sorry, where is it? This. I'm looking for this. Here we go. All right, so let me now take a look and see what kind of questions we have, if any. Where did my glasses go? There they are. Okay. All right. So again, if you're new to the channel, the best way to interact with me is by asking a question. I love that you have opinions and that you want to talk to each other, but I just want to see the questions. So write question in all caps so I can see it. Otherwise, I'm going to scroll past it. It's unfortunate because a lot of people ask questions and I can't get to them because I have to scroll through all the other stuff. And if you don't let me see you're asking a question, I think that you're just throwing your opinion out. Anyway, let's see here. Black Earth Productions, my friend. Nice to see you. Black Earth Productions with a Z.com is his website. He's also got his own YouTube channel, Black Earth Productions. Good friend of mine. Black Earth Productions says, question, is dying to yourself as Odin did, is this when the teacher realized that it's not about them? Yeah, the thing about Cephicus is that he never asks superficial questions. I have to think about what he's saying because he's asking some deep questions. Is this when the teacher realizes that it's not about them? Well, I would definitely say that could be certainly part of it. That is one of the biggest things. I'll just share from myself here. Some people, not everybody, and certainly not all the time, but some people say some nice things to me. And some people, especially in the beginning, especially if I'm working with them one-on-one and we're doing energy work or I'm teaching them something, they will have an experience of me and they'll think that I'm something I'm not. Well, I don't know if it is or not. They have an experience of me. And then the teacher has two choices. The teacher can either believe it, which is what happens with a lot of teachers. They believe their own hype, which means they believe the experience of their students, and they start to see themselves. I know a guy who did this, and whether he, whatever. At one point, he was letting his students tell the world that he was a fully realized bodhisattva. While in person, he would pretend to be humble. In reality, he was, letting people say this about him, and he ended up making himself very sick. I think he's okay now. Maybe he's worked through it, but it's not about the teacher for sure. But you can't tell the student that. The student should think that. The student should think that the teacher is something special, something beyond human, beyond normal. Because if the teacher is a true teacher, they will be channeling energy from the ascended masters. And what they're experiencing is not so much the teacher, but the energy that's coming through them, which is the ascended masters. Now, a true teacher is going to be watching this and realizing that it's not them. And they're going to be just as blown away about what's happening. But they can't show that because they realize that from the student's perspective, they are the symbol. So they have to play a part. It's a part. They have to allow themselves to play that part in order for the student to have that experience. Now, as I was talking about earlier, at some point that student is going to mature past their projection, and they're going to realize that the teacher is a teacher who, who when they fart it smells, and when they burp it smells, and that they're not anything other than them. And then the student has to go through this challenge of, well, do I reject the teacher? But they're teaching me good stuff, and then you've got to go past it and go, no, they're just a human being. And yeah, I don't like this, and I don't like that, and I don't like that about that person, but they have something I want, so I'm going to keep training with them. And then you still, even if you don't like the person or you disrespect them about whatever it is, in order to continue to learn and get past that point, you have to still treat them with respect, and you still have to do exactly what they tell you to do. Because the teacher knows, they've been there, and they know if you do this, this, and this, you'll get this. Just do what I'm saying, and you'll see what happens. And so the student has to get over their own selfishness, their own projection, their own, all that kind of stuff. But in order for a teacher to be a true teacher, they do have to get over themselves. Because, I mentioned earlier about teachers, and I'm dying to name names, but I'm not going to. Teachers who, give a lot, who are really popular and give a lot of superficial, good stuff, but it's still superficial. It's still kind of fluff. And so the students are never pushed to go beyond their projection, their self. Projection is narcissism. You're projecting yourself onto the mirror of the teacher, and you're really looking at yourself, and you're projecting that. So when you're projecting positive, like, oh, they're God, they're wonderful, that's your own ego narcissism you're projecting on them. When you start to grow past that and you see them as this and that, and I don't like this about them, and then you start finding things wrong with them, that you're looking at the things you don't like about yourself. It's all narcissism. So, the student has to die to themselves in that way. So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but definitely the teacher, in order to be a true teacher and not get, here's what I'm trying to say. If a teacher does not know how to die to themselves, then what will happen is they will be seduced by the narcissistic projection of their students. Easiest example is if the student falls in love with them. A really hot-looking 25-year-old, wide-eyed student falls in love with me. It's very tempting to get seduced into that and to create a relationship. But that's their projection. And if I allow myself to get seduced into that, then what's happening is I am now allowing the student to tell me, don't teach me, don't go deep, don't challenge me. Stay up here where it's safe. It's and then that's when teachers end up getting sued by students because they know all that that kind of stuff, because they get seduced into that. So anyway, again, I don't know if I'm answering your question or not, but I think we're on the same page here. Black Earth Productions, meaning further, dying to the lower self to give birth to the real self, which is in alignment with truth and the universe. Yeah, the lower self is the unconscious. So the unconscious is a child. The unconscious, your unconscious mind is a 4-year-old. It's a toddler. So whenever you're operating from your unconscious fears, it's the same kinds of fears that little 4-year-olds have when they think there's a monster in the closet or a monster under the bed. But it comes out in adult forms, like the deep state is trying to take away my this, or the beings of light force me to reincarnate to steal from this and take my energy away from me, and I can't trust anybody. That's the 4-year-old saying there's a monster in my closet. It's the same thing. So your unconscious mind is a toddler. We all have them. I do too. I'm no different than you. I have my unconscious little toddler. Now here's the thing about the unconscious. The unconscious is a 400 or 2,000 pound gorilla. And what the unconscious will do is it will get you in a headlock, and it will start telling you, whispering in your ear, telling you this person's out to get you, that's out to get you, you can't do this, you can't do that, you got to be careful. And so when you're presented with an opportunity to take an action that will take you to the next level of your evolution, which will mean the death of that little 4-year-old narcissist. What will happen is that little 4-year-old narcissist in your unconscious mind, who is actually a 2,000 pound gorilla in terms of its strength, will do everything in its power to stop you. And if you're working with a teacher, and the teacher is the one who's giving you something and pushing you either through their words or through their teaching to move to that next level, that 2,000 pound gorilla is going to get you in a headlock and tell you, if it can't tell you, it's because of this or because of that, it'll say, your teacher's out to get you. You can't trust them. They're evil. They're wrong. Now, the thing is, you don't know, because there are untrustworthy teachers out there. There are teachers out there that will abuse you, that are lying to you, that are only interested in your money, or worse, interested in your love and adoration. So one thing to be aware of is walk away from any teacher who's not willing to let you see them as bad. I mean, I can't care how the student thinks of me. I can't. Because if I'm worried about them liking me or loving me, then I can't be objective enough to know what they need. And sometimes what they need is for me to tell them the one thing that's really going to piss them off. Right? So, that's why I charge. That's why when people, I get it all the time, people email me all the time wanting me to email them and talk to them and help them. And I can't do that unless I'm in a professional, which means you pay me for my time. You pay me for my time, I am completely objective. If you don't pay me for my time, then I'm human. I'm going to want something from you. If you're a hot chick and you want to work for me you want to work with me for free, I'm going to want something from that. Even if it's just a desire, even if I don't act out on it, I'm going to have the desire to want that. So you pay me money, and that way my agenda has been taken care of, and now I'm here to serve you. What do you need? I'm sorry you don't want to hear this, but here's what you need. So anyway, I don't know what I'm saying again. So I think I don't know if I answered your question, but that's my answer. All right, Miguel Bruxo question: should we be ourselves 100% always? Well, I mean, that's kind of obvious, isn't it? I don't know what you mean by that. Should you be yourself 100%? It sounds like I should say yes to that question, but it makes me want to, it gives me the feeling that you haven't read a lot of my stuff. Maybe you're new to the channel, and it makes me want to ask you why you're asking that question. But on the surface, of course, you should be yourself. Why wouldn't you be? Why would you be someone else? Okay. Okay, so again, I'm really glad that you guys are here and you want to say things and talk to each other. I really don't care about any of it unless you're asking me a question. All right, Kale Har, question. Please, can you explain how to recognize when we are subject to a behavior which is entrenched in previous abuse or even bad parenting when these are unconscious? Many thanks. That's a lot of a question. Can I explain how? I think I'm trying to. This whole thing is about trying to explain that. But first thing we got to start with simple steps, and the first step is acknowledge all of the fear-based beliefs that you have within yourself. Do you believe that you are sinful? Do you believe that God is out to put you in hell? Do you believe the devil is trying to possess you or kill you or destroy the human race? Do you believe in evil archons that deceive you and want to steal your energy? Do you believe in aliens that are completely focused on to stealing from your energy and anything that creates fear? I would even go so far as to say, misunderstanding of Gnostic beliefs, saying that there's the demiurge and there's the good, the good higher and the bad lower, and we have to get out of the bad lower and get to the good higher. Anything that creates fear of any kind, you have to get rid of it. So let's just start there. Based on your question, we would probably be able to have to go, a lot deeper than that, but that will get the ball rolling. And then you learn to trust. And if you don't, here's the thing about trust. Trust is not a feeling. So if you're with somebody and you feel trustworthy, that they're trustworthy, that you like them, that's not trust, that's a feeling. Trust is an action. Trust is when somebody says, okay, I need you to just step off that cliff. Trust me, you'll be okay. You look over the edge of that cliff and you see it's 600 feet and there's sharks, coming up out of the water and there's sharp rocks down there. Everything in you is telling you not to do it, but you decide to trust that person and you step off that cliff. And then there happens to be this magical invisible bridge and you just stepped onto it and you said, see, I told you to trust me. It was there. That's trust. When I work with a lot of people, just simply when I used to do psychic readings, and they would want to ask me about some guy they were with, and at some point I would say, if I, after talking to them and looking at it, said that, they could trust the person, I would say, well, what's it going to take for you to trust them? And they say, well, if he or she can prove to me that they'll never hurt me. And I said, that's not trust. If somebody proves to you that it's a good, that it's going to work, then you don't have to trust at all. It takes no trust whatsoever. So trusting the universe means everything in front of you is telling you that you are an evil this and something's coming after you and you are a victim and you have to be careful and you can't trust anybody. Trusting the universe says, I'm going to drop all that and I'm just going to choose to trust that the universe will provide what I need. Start from that. If you do that, all of your unconscious garbage will come to the surface. That 2,000-pound gorilla will start screaming at you all of the fear-based beliefs that you were programmed into believing. And then you'll have to face that false projection in front of you, and you will have to make choices. I'm telling you the truth. The most important thing I can tell you is that in order to be free, it comes down to making fearless choices and fearless actions. It has almost nothing to do with what you see or what you feel. It comes down to taking action for what you want. Now, the other thing is to learn to trust yourself. I'm going through this right now. I'm okay financially, but, this was a big hit for me financially. And if something were to fall apart, I would be in trouble. Because now I just sunk a bunch of money into not a down payment, but security deposit, living in a very high rent area for, a 2-bedroom house with a garage, for Christ's sake. And I'm paying all the utilities and all that. So I'm choosing to believe that things are going to continue to go the way that they have, but I've got to believe in me. I was programmed not to believe in myself. I shared about this on here. I shared about it today. I'll share it again. When I was in college, I was an actor, and I was studying to be an actor. And as a freshman, I was cast in the main stage productions, which means, when the university puts on plays, they invite the public and people pay money to come see whatever it is. Now, normally the only students that get lead roles in those main stage productions are the graduate students who are getting their MFAs. They never cast the freshmen. I got cast multiple times over and over again, which was unheard of. And my parents came to see me because it was a big deal. And I told them, this is a big deal. I've got the lead in the plateau. You got to come. So they came. And the dean of the department saw my parents and said, "You're Michael Denny's parents? You should be so proud of him." And I heard this. I was in the dressing room. I heard right outside the dressing room. They're heaping praise on me. They don't do that. They don't walk around doing that. To my parents. And I said, I've done it. I finally got it. I've got my parents' approval. It's good. Now they know what I'm, right? Any parent, normal parent, would be extremely proud to hear that. Show was over. We're driving to go wherever it is to eat. Silence. There's just this really uncomfortable silence. And my dad says, "Well, you're not there yet." We're sitting down for dinner and silence again. And I'm barely blinking back the tears. I'm trying to figure out what the hell was he trying to say. My mother leans over to me. She says, "So why do you do it? Is it for the applause?" That's how I was programmed. So here I am, 54 years old. I should be, totally comfortable with this idea of having a house of my own and a high rent. Why not? And here I am still feeling like that little 20-year-old kid who doesn't deserve it and isn't going to make it. I still feel that. None of that has changed. I'm still programmed with those feelings. What is different is that I choose to trust and I choose to take action. And when this kind of thing, which is my fantasy, pops up, I apply for it. And magically, they give it to me. And not only that, they tell me, "Wow, you made a business out of this, and you make this amount of money. Wow, that's really amazing. I wish I could do that." But I still hear it with those ears, that 4-year-old that heard energetically from my parents that I could never be anything because I'd make them look bad. You have to be conscious of those things and take action completely opposite of that. And that takes trust. And it means jumping off of that cliff even though you can't see the invisible bridge that's underneath you. Okay, I don't know where that came from, but hopefully I answered your question there. All right. So you're asking how to recognize it. So start with that. Start with trusting and believing in yourself. All right, let's see here. We're looking for questions. Cosmo Joe, question. I have been striving to separate the intellect from the mind in meditation and have had great periods of peace. Congratulations. Good. But I have noticed the mind without the intellect is very dreamlike and fuzzy. Yes, that's right. Now, the rest of us, maybe not all of us, but speaking for myself, I love that state. That to me is, that's why when I was a kid, that's why I smoked pot. So I could get into that dreamlike fuzzy space. I love that. I love that feeling. So that's how you're supposed to feel. Now, I know a little bit about you, and I know, some of your struggles and all of that. And what I can tell by that last sentence is that perhaps that makes you a little uncomfortable. Like, well, wait a minute, I'm not able to pick things apart. Remember the intellect comes from the Latin word intellegere. No, I know what I'm typing. Don't change it. Intellegere, which means to pick apart from among. Right? That's what intellect means. Now, most of us in the Western world think that the intellect is the mind. In fact, when people say he's got a good mind, what they really mean is he's got a good intellect. He can pick things apart. This comes from when you live in fear. And sometimes you have to be in fear. If you're in a war zone, or if there's a 2,000-pound gorilla coming at you, or there's a scary looking guy coming down the street, or a tiger's coming out of you have to have an intellect to be able to go, okay, what is happening here? Which direction should I go? What is the safest route? How do I turn the safety off on the gun? You have to have your intellect there. You have to be able to pick apart from among. But it's from a state of fear. When you're in a state of fear, that's when the intellect works. If you're living in the intellect all the time, it means you're living in a state of fear all the time. Which means that if you get out of the intellect and you go to the fuzzy, the mind, which is not the intellect, into the meditative mind, then your intellect is going to go, hang on, I don't know what's happening here. Should I at least be looking around to see what's what? So that's a really good place for you to be. Again, based on knowing you and having some history with you, it means that's good. Learn to get comfortable with that. Learn to choose to step off that cliff. It's exactly what I was talking about. Getting in that fuzzy place is stepping off the cliff and leaving the intellect on the cliff. I'll be back later. And being a little scared. That's totally okay. You're making the choice to trust, and you're doing the opposite of what your unconscious mind wants you to do. So listen, for those that have been on here a lot, I have been mercilessly slicing Cosmo Joe apart when it comes to his intellect. And to his credit, he keeps coming back. This is so important because there's a lot of students that can't do that. When I reflect back on them, things they don't like and tell them what they don't want to hear, a lot of them don't come back. They get personally offended, they take it personally, and they don't come back. He keeps coming back no matter how much abuse I heap on him, trying to point out to him that he needs to let go of the intellect. He still keeps coming back. And now I am seeing, from your response, I'm seeing that you are making progress. And like Black Earth Production says, it's not about me. It's not about you liking me. It's about you. It's about you getting what you want. And that's my job. So congratulations. Yes, you're on the right track there. All right, looking for the questions here again. Cosmo Joe, part 2. If the mind without the intellect is dreamlike, how can it direct itself to goals, since goals seem to be the product of the intellect? All right, let me disavow you of that misunderstanding. It is true that the intellect can make goals, but the intellect doesn't have any emotions. Your goals are always going to be a product of your emotional desires. I want to surf. I want to surf as much as I can, and I want to be comfortable. I don't want to have to listen to other people. Hence, I have to live where I live because the waves are good here. It's very high rent. This has been my dream for a very long time. It's been difficult. I've had to live in the hood, 20 minutes inland, because that's all I could afford. And I'd have to drive sometimes an hour to get to the beach to go surfing. It was a real pain in the ass. I can walk out my front door. 3 blocks I can walk out into the street and look down and see the waves from in front of my house. That is not a product of the intellect. It's a product of my emotions. My emotions create a goal. Your intellect cannot create a goal because it doesn't have any emotions. The intellect at its best, when you have a desire, an emotional desire, you'll go, how do I make that happen? Then the intellect says, hey, I can help you with that. Let's start examining what we need to do. That's how I came across this thunderwizard.com. If you haven't gone, please go there. That's the best way to support this channel and learn. When you support the channel, you also get all kinds of freebies. And you learn stuff. I mean, you learn shamanism from the... that was a result of me sitting with my intellect and trying to figure out, okay, how do I do exactly what I want to do and make a living out of it, and going online and looking at this, and the intellect says, okay, type this into Google. Okay, type this into Google. And sure enough, one day I landed on Patreon and I went, I don't know exactly how to tweak this. That was my intellect. Now, my intellect didn't create the goal. My intellect only helped me to figure out the steps in order to put it into place. Now, in order to keep it going, my emotional connection to you guys, to the teaching, to wanting to be the best teacher I can be and continue to give myself the life that I want, that is what drives the goal. But the intellect is only there to help me interface my mind into this three-dimensional reality. This is why when people who only live in the intellect, they either very often are very unsuccessful or very unhappy, because there's no emotional connection. We are emotional beings. And you will not find happiness unless you are able to live in an emotionally satisfying way. You are a being of desires. This goes against the whole modern, by modern I mean the Christianized understanding of you have to, die to your desires and live for others. That is the biggest crock of shit in the world. That's how they use it to control you. That's how the government or the world or society or whatever, that's how they control you, is by getting you out of your feelings, except for your fear. They want you to stay in your fear. But again, fear is not really an emotion. It's a reaction. Emotions like love, the positive emotions, excitement and love, and all of those things, those desires are coming from your soul. And your mind comes from the word for moon. Man, human being, comes from the word man, which is nothing more than the moon. The mind reflects the desires of the soul. And when you connect to the soul, you have an emotional experience of joy, of love, of excitement, of hope. These are the emotions that come from your soul. And your mind reflects those things into your human three-dimensional reality. When those emotions say, how do I find the love of my life? Your intellect says, oh, I can help with that. Let's go online and go to Match.com or go to OkCupid, or let's go down the street and go to the bar, or let's go and lift weights in the gym and then flex on the beach. I mean, it's trying to figure out the ways to help you get what you want, but it doesn't have any desires in and of itself. It will protect you. And so sometimes if you say, I'm going to shut down my feelings are bad, or these feelings are too painful, I'm never going to feel these again, the intellect steps in and says, I'll shield you from that. Let's get lost in thought. Okay, so let's hope I answered your question there. Black Earth Productions question, could you agree, as I've been teaching this lately, he says, that fear is the same frequency as courage transmuted? I can see what you're saying. I'd have to meditate on that. Fear is the same frequency as courage transmuted. Yeah, I'd have to sit with that for a while. Because we can get lost in words and is that almost like saying fear and courage are two sides of the same coin? Because fear can drive you to do some pretty courageous things, for sure. I don't know, man. Again, you asked some deep questions, and I'm going to have to sit with that for a while. So, being that you are a teacher in your own right, I'm gonna meditate on that and see if I can learn from that. But I think what I'm getting from that is that they could be two sides of the same coin. Yeah, let me think about that. Great question. Amy Meyer, question. I am thinking that trusting the universe means trusting one's own instincts first. What do you say about this? Well, the question is whether or not you know the difference between your instincts and your unconscious fears. Because I get this a lot. I'm going to leave. I'm not going to be your student anymore, Mr. Denny, because I have to follow my gut on this one. And my gut says I can't afford it. No, that person thinks they're operating from their instinct. By the way, I'm not pointing one person out. I get that all the time. So you have to decide. Ultimately, you're the one that knows what your life is. But the question is, do you have the consciousness to know the difference between a true gut instinct or a fear? This is the 2,000-pound gorilla who says, you don't have enough money for that. You should just wait and you'll do this later. Go do that job you can't stand for a while. Or, stay with the husband that beats you because, he's paying the rent and then you'll be all alone. Sometimes you don't know. What is the 2,000-pound gorilla and what is your instinct? So generally speaking, I would say, yes, trust your instincts. But what I'm talking about instincts, I'm not just talking about your survival instincts, because those are instincts as well. I'm talking about tapping into your soul and knowing what your soul wants for you to experience. Follow those instincts, and then you are bulletproof. Doesn't mean you won't have challenges, and it doesn't mean you won't run into difficulties, but you are bulletproof in terms of the end result. You know you're following your soul, regardless of how difficult things are. If you look back and you go, okay, where was I a year ago? Wow, for me, like a year ago, I'm doing a hell of a lot better. 2 years ago, there was no way. 2 years ago to be where I'm at now, forget it. So I know I'm following the right path, at least so far, right up to this point. I'm following the right instincts. Okay? All right, so let's see how many more questions here. We've got a few more questions. I'm going to take a short little break here. I'm going to play with the lights here because the sun is going down. And let's see what I can do about that. So I'm going to be back here in just a second. Again, take a look at all of the commercial stuff. Take a look at, if you haven't already, go to all of the websites that I give out in these little blurbs here. That's where you find all of my books. That's where you find all my videos. That's how you find all the different services that I offer and how best to not only take advantage of all of the resources that I have, but also to support this channel so I can keep doing this all the time. All right, so let's take a look at the 5 rules of the matrix, and then I'll be back in a couple of minutes. The last and final door to exit the matrix. So let me talk a little bit about that again. You just got through looking at the list of the 5 rules. Now, you can follow all of those. You can start, especially in the beginning of anything. Like if I'm teaching spirit fighting, especially. Spirit fighting is an energetic martial art form. It's like Qigong ratcheted up to the highest level. It's super powerful shamanic, stuff, as well as an extremely lethal martial art. All that stuff mixed in together. When I train people in that, in the beginning, the energy fills them, and oh my God, I've never experienced anything like this, and their mind opens, and they, able to, all that kind of, it's better than any drug they've ever taken, better than any power, plant teacher and all that kind of stuff. In the beginning, they're like, I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. This is the greatest thing, and the blah, blah, blah. That's the same thing that happens with any kind of teaching or any kind of learning. There's this honeymoon phase in the beginning. And then the honeymoon phase sort of fizzles out, and then it's just like, it's grunt work, and you got to do the work, and it takes a little discipline. And then you're about to reach a crescendo. You're about to move to another level, and you reach what I call a plateau crisis. It's at this plateau crisis that the 2,000-pound gorilla gets you in a headache. Excuse me, I got a little bit of a headache. The 2,000-pound gorilla gets you in a headlock, and he starts to tell you all of the ways that it doesn't work, and you can't do it, and you shouldn't do this, and you got to stop this, and whether it's the teacher is out to get you, or you don't have the money, or here's another one that I get from, and by the way, again, this is not just one person that says this. This is, I know when somebody's operating from their unconscious fear when they say these things. And one of them is, I just haven't been putting the time and effort into doing what you've been suggesting, and I'm wasting your time and I'm wasting my money, so I'm going to stop. That is the 2,000-pound gorilla, got you by the neck. What he's really saying is, you're on the verge of dying to yourself, and I don't want that, because then I'll lose my power over you, so I'm going to talk you out of this. By the way, have you been doing it? You haven't been doing the work, have you? How much money are you paying? And he's got other students. He could be working with somebody else. You're just a loser. You should just stop. That's the 2,000-pound gorilla. My response, if they're telling me I'm going to leave and this is the reason, I don't stop them. But if they come to me, because my suggestion is to always come to me with your feelings, regardless, if you're thinking about leaving, that's okay. You can think about leaving. You can want to leave. You can feel like you don't trust me. You can feel like I have it in for you. You can feel like I don't like you. You can have all those feelings, but you have to tell me. Because then I can address the 2,000-pound gorilla that's got you in a headlock. And if you're open to learning, then you will have an opportunity to do the opposite of what the gorilla is telling you to do. But if you don't come to me with that, I can't help you. So that's when people disappear, and then I get the email or I get the phone call saying, I'm leaving and here are my reasons. And if I can tell by their voice they've already made the decision, I don't stop them. The reason for that is the way the universe is set up is that it responds to fearlessness. I will respond to your fearlessness. That means if you come to me, like Cosmo Joe's doing, and you tell me your fears and what you're thinking, leaving it open-ended, not making the decision for both of us, but keeping it open-ended, then I can help. But if you make the decision without me, I can't help you. And the universe, it won't matter, even if I try and talk you into it. The universe is like, no, they're not, they don't want to hear what you have. They don't want to know. Leave them alone. So I leave them alone. But that's that final test. And again, when you're in that final test, you won't know. When we're looking at it from afar, we can see it. And we can go, I can. When other people are going through it, we can go, yeah, well, obviously. I mean, But when you're in it, you can't see it. And it will be among the most frightening things, perhaps the most frightening thing you've ever done. Because everything in you will be telling you to do the opposite, to give up. Or I'll come back later. I need to do this. But every single, bear in mind, you could die tomorrow. And the soul will go, crap, I had an opportunity and I didn't take it. I'm not trying to lay any trip on you, because it's okay to make mistakes and go back and forward. I'm not saying you have to be perfect by any stretch of the imagination. But, I'm sure all of us, I can think of more than a few different occasions of, if I had that to do over again, I would do that differently, right? So we don't have to wait for that. We can be in that now. And when you're in that state of fear and you're looking to sabotage yourself, to walk away from what it is you want to do, and you have that opportunity, instead of saying, well, I'll do it later, go, what, this could be it. Why don't I act as though I'm only here for today and just get everything I can out of this life and not play it safe, but really go for it, right? Okay, so now I'm going to get back to the questions here. Oops, where am I going? Where am I going? That's where I'm going. All right. Sorry, I'm just looking for the questions. Again, it really, I know a lot of people are new. It's really helpful if you don't discuss with each other and throw out your opinions, because I have to scroll through everything to try and find the questions. Miguel Bruxo question. Norm, but when I do it, everything just goes well, but I'm afraid it might make some people envy me, or just having so much power I can't control it and it's really a lot. So again, if you're going to ask a question, please put the effort into forming a question I can read. It's hard for me to, I don't know what that is. A lot of misspellings and there's no punctuation. I know maybe you're on your phone, but this is, you want to get something from me, put some effort into the question. When I do it, I don't know what it is. Everything goes well, but I'm afraid it might make some people envy me. So what? I understand where you're coming from, but so what? So people envy you. So fucking what? They probably will. My brother, last I heard he was homeless. I think he got some money and he might be okay for a little while. If he doesn't change his victim mentality, he's going to end up on the street again, guaranteed, unless something changes. But he is sure that I am the reason for his fucked up life. He's blamed everything on me. I mean, he doesn't have any, he has no reason to back it up, but he's sure that I did it to him somehow. I haven't seen him in 20 years, but I made his life miserable. He's got this disease, he's got this illness. It's my fault he has it, So he envies me. He's envied me my whole life. So fucking what? It's not my problem. My job, I have one job. My job is to have as much fun as I can possibly stand. And if somebody is in my way of that, then they get cut out of my life. And that sounds cruel, but the truth is that by me enjoying myself, I'm only helping everybody, because anybody else who wants to enjoy themselves will rise with me as I rise through my life. If they want to stay a victim, then they're going to find a problem with how I'm living my life, and they're going to not like that. And fine, go live your life. I don't care. I don't care. I won't lose a wink of sleep over people who don't want to get the most out of life. If they want to blame me for that, that's not my problem. Probably a badge of honor. And then he goes on to say, or just having so much power I can't control it and it's really a lot. That's your narcissism. So what you're saying is that if you get a lot of power, you're going to somehow destroy people. You don't have that much power. Everybody has their own ability to experience life and to be as powerful as you are. So that's your narcissism. You got to get over that. I'm not saying you're not infinite. You are. I'm not saying you aren't powerful. You are. I'm saying that your level of power is not so completely out of the realms of things that you're going to destroy other people's ability to live their life. That's your childish narcissism. That's the 4-year-old who believes that their love for their mother is going to overwhelm them, who believes that their jealousy towards their dad, right? We're talking about the, whatever they call that. I forget what that's called. Those are just your feelings. Your feelings feel overwhelming to a 4-year-old, but they're just feelings. So you may have a lot of power, but your power is not so much that it will destroy other people's ability. You got to get over that. Okay, let's see here. Sorry. Sorry, forgive me. I'm just trying to find the question here. All right. True Supreme Creator Asharana. Question. I actually was able to do the Mother Ula meditation. I think what you mean is the whole breath meditation. You can find that on my channel. Go look for that. Whole breath meditation. I think I might have written mediation, but I meant meditation. Do the Mother Hulda meditation thing. Is the frequency and sounds kept changing and tweaking from one octave? What was I hearing? I don't know. I wasn't there. I wouldn't worry about it. When I play this, you can hear me doing the Hul breath, and it sounds like Tibetan, multiple octaves. I'm not trying to do that. It's just, I think I had a slight effect on there, but it ended up sounding like I was. That's what the breath will do. So don't worry about it. Just enjoy it. Don't. If you do the technique the way that I tell you how to do it, which is usually unvoiced, but if you choose to voice it, then it can do that. Just do it. Don't get wrapped up in anything other than just doing what you're supposed to do. Steve Travesty, question. I am looking at my mind, intellect, and heart for my consciousness growth. I don't know what that means. You've thrown in 1, 2, 3, 4 different things. I don't know what you mean by any of them. That's a lot. It sounds like you're in your head already. I'm looking at my mind, intellect, and heart for my consciousness growth. I may have a great misunderstanding of it. How do I separate messages from the heart and messages from the mind? So I'm gonna attack a word that you're using. I don't know how you're using it, but it's something that's misrepresented a lot in New Age understandings. Heart, my heart, come from the heart energy. Every one of these chakras has a positive and a negative. The negative of the heart is that it comes from impatience. It has an agenda, meaning it wants to be loved. And so when the majority of the time that I hear people going, you know what, I just don't deal with negativity, I'm just coming from the heart. What they're saying is that they're stuffing all of their own anger and their own resentment and their own fear and their own self-hatred because they can't tolerate it. They're stuffing it down because they're around a lot of other people who are the same, who keep saying to them, stop being so negative, don't be so intense, why can't you just be happy, smile? I love everything and everybody all the time. And man, you're really bringing me down with that intensity. I just want to come from the heart. It's childishness, but it's coming from a desire to stuff down all of your painful feelings. And as I teach everybody, you have to have all of your feelings. You can only take action on the positivity of your soul, but you have to have all of your feelings. So if you're operating from your heart center because you don't want to be angry or negative, then that is not the heart. That's denial. That's what I hear in that. How do I separate the messages from the heart from the messages of the mind? The mind is what you want. Remember, the intellect is the part that we use to run away from our emotions when we stay in our head. That's why people smoke pot. They smoke pot because it gets them in. And I have these really great revelations. But I mean, if, do you think that there's like a universe in my thumbnail and like there's a little man on the earth in the universe in my thumbnail and he's looking at his thumbnail and he's got a universe in his thumbnail? Oh man, that is so intense. That's the intellect. It's nothing. It's a bunch of nonsense. It's fun, but it means nothing. So the mind is the reflection of the soul. So you want to know how to connect to the soul. That's what you're trying to ask me. The way you connect to the soul is to listen to that which gives you joy. And that sounds easier. It's easier said than done for a lot of people because a lot of people have been programmed to not follow their soul desire, their joy. And so they're trying to live according to what mommy and daddy and society and the government and the people next door and the people you think want, And then what ends up happening is you're in conflict because your soul desire, for me, is to go surfing. For me to tell people, the reason why I'm so successful is because I make sure that I go surfing as often as possible, fuck everything and everybody else. That comes first. And I'm going to live my life. If I have to live on a shoestring budget so that I can afford to live in walking distance to the beach, then that's what I'm going to do. That is not how, the average person is going to tell you how to be successful. They're going to tell you to think it through and to follow this and have a good job on the side because you never know and you got to have something to back you up right? So the point is that most people are in conflict with what their soul truly wants because they're trying to be accepted or be good or be smart or whatever it is they think they're supposed to be. And that's the problem. And so your intellect kicks in because then you stay in your head so you don't stay in your emotions. People get sad, they get angry, they smoke, they drink, they do stupid things to themselves. And then before you know it, they're 60 years old and they've, have a heart attack and they never did that one thing they wanted to do. I made the decision, I don't know when it was, 10 years ago, that I was going to only live for my happiness. And I didn't realize what I was doing, but that has what's got me to where I am now. And that made me realize, there's this science behind it. It's following your soul desire. That's what I'm teaching you how to do. That's where all of this is coming from. So forget about the messages from the mind and the messages from the heart and just listen to what gives you joy. And if you don't know what gives you joy, then you need to work with somebody like me. If you need a private session, go here. career.thunderwizard.com. And within an hour, I can probably help you find out what it is you truly want to do. Being able to follow through, that's something else. But this is one of the things that people get when they work with me. This is why people work with me for, they sign up on thunderwizard.com for once or twice or 4 times a month. Because they want help to get through that conflict and to stay in their soul desire, as scary, and it will be. When you get to your soul desire, if you've got conflict, it'll scare the shit out of you. And taking action on your soul desire will be the most frightening thing you've ever done. That's that final test. That's it. Very simple, but very hard to do for some. All right, I hope I answered your question. I hope you didn't get personally offended by that. But yeah, you're stuck in your intellect, and I think you've got some codependent people-pleasing things going on and you don't realize it. You think you're being spiritual when in reality you're trying to make yourself acceptable to other people. And you don't trust your own happiness, your own joy, because somebody told you you weren't supposed to do that. That's what I get from your question. So forget about listening to the messages. Just follow your joy. That's all you need to do. Let's see. John Burnham question. Would you say fear/courage is the same as above, so below? I mean, I could say that. It sounds a little trite and superficial, but I can't find anything wrong with it. So I'm going to say, sure, that works. Let's see. Emerson's coffee bike. Question. During the Holetier progression, you mentioned the pineal gland. What is the pineal gland's role in mastering the matrix? Oh, that is a tough question. That's a deep question. The Holetier meditation, Holetier meditation. I don't know the exact words I have. You can find that on my, the Holetier Heaven Earth meditation, I think is what it's called. This used to be a secret meditation. I started teaching it publicly for free. I'm going to tell you right here and now, that meditation, I've said numerous times there are techniques and meditations that I teach for free on the YouTube channel that if you mastered it and did it for the rest of your life, it would give you everything. It's one of those things that, you'd have to be initiated in and pay thousands of dollars and years and before the teacher gives it to you. It's on there for free. And everybody that gives me a hard time about charging people money for this, that, or for astrology services or whatever, they have no fucking clue that in that space of fear-based victimhood, and they want to blame me for it because I do charge, because I have to make a living for some things, that they are missing out on the priceless free stuff that can give them everything that they want, because they're in that childish mindset where they believe that everything should be given to them for free. They'll never find it. They'll never put the effort into finding it. I'm telling you right here and right now, that's one of them. So go do that. You're asking about that meditation. The pineal gland. The pineal and the pituitary gland. Pituitary is what we would call the third eye, if I'm getting my glands right here. The pineal is in the center of the brain, and it looks like which one looks like a pine cone? I think it's the pineal. Looks like a pine cone. That's why pine trees are sacred. By the way, pine trees give off a hallucinogen. That's why when you're hiking in pine trees, you feel this euphoria. There's a very slight hallucinogen that pine trees give off, and it puts you in a heightened state of awareness. Now, it's a low enough dose that it's actually, it's good. It's a power plant that does good things for you. But in terms of mastering the matrix, first off, when you do high-level energy work, when you do celestial qigong, which is at qigong.thunderwizard.com, that's the highest level energy work that I can teach publicly without taking the risk of damaging somebody. I have to teach the other stuff in person, otherwise you could damage yourself. But that's still the highest level stuff I've seen. I've had qigong masters, tai chi, qigong, kung fu masters who take that and they say, I've never experienced anything like this in my 30 years of blah, 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 blah. If you do that kind of stuff, what will happen is that your pineal and your pituitary gland will start releasing DMT and dopamine and other chemicals that people get from doing things like ayahuasca and marijuana and mushrooms and whatever. But it happens naturally, meaning that there are no downsides, there are no side effects, and it increases in strength. And this is what gives people these superpowers, the ability to see auras or to travel out of the body or to project energy or to heal or to have psychic abilities. It's going to be different for everybody. The pineal and the pituitary gland, when they get activated, they're going to release your power, not my power. Don't try and seek my abilities. You have to seek your abilities. And so it'll come up, whatever that is. And so when you're in that state, then you can master the matrix. Now, there is still that last little downfall, that last little test, which is even when people open those glands up and they get all kinds of power and they can do all kinds of crazy stuff, they still have to get past that last test. This is why when people want to ask me questions, how do I do this? How do I do that? I say, who cares about that? Just go after your joy. Because I've known people, I mentioned one already, both of my Taoist teachers who I don't work with now, they've kicked me out of the sect. Both of them were nuts. And both of them were extremely unhappy and extremely angry and extremely fearful. And it's simply because even though they had all that power and they had opened those things up, they still hadn't mastered the last part. If they knew how to take their power and align it to their joy and intend their true soul desire at their third eye, they'd be unbeatable. They'd be unbelievably powerful. But because they have all that power, they don't have that one last bit. Might as well have nothing, because it's all pointless if you're not happy. I'm not saying giddy all the time. I mean living in a state of fulfillment. I'm not happy all the time. I have my own. I already shared with you. When I go through my struggles, when I'm starting to expand and starting to evolve, I go through my nonsense garbage that I was programmed with, and I take action. I lost my fiance 8 months ago. I miss her every day. I still don't. She would have loved this house. This was our dream. What I have now is what we dreamed of having, and we were going to do this together. And I'm not doing it with her in the physical, so that's not easy to do. But I am having more joy and more happiness than I ever have. I'm living life. It's all up and down. But I'm living my dream. I tell you, I went out surfing the other day. The water was warm, the waves were fun, and who needs Hawaii, man? I mean, I'm living my fantasy. One little stuff left, but we're almost there. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but there's my answer. Jedi Black Knight question in CQG, Celestial Qigong, qigong.thunderwizard.com. In Celestial Qigong, if time is limited, should I reduce the number of heaven-earth cycles from, say, 9 to 6, or reduce the time for the macrocosmic orbit? I mean, you can. There's no reason why you can't. This is the great thing about Celestial Qigong, is that even though it's high level, there's only a couple of things that I say that you have to do in order not to damage yourself. But you can pretty much mix and match and do whatever you want, and it won't hurt you because I designed it that way. The heaven-earth meditation, it is a 9-cycle meditation. So if you do 6 instead of 9, it's not like it's not going to work. You'll still get something, but there's something that happens when you go through all 9. You go through all 9 levels. It's a unit, and you can feel it. You can feel like it kicks in. So my suggestion is, if you have limited time and you're doing the heaven earth, then do the heaven earth and get rid of something else. If you're going to do the heaven earth, my suggestion is do it as it is instructed. It makes me want to say, well, why the hell don't you have enough time? I mean, it's only going to take 10 minutes maximum. Why do you not have 10 minutes? Then I'm going to start asking, why are you so involved in so many other things and thinking you need to work so hard? And why are you letting other people and other things? That's 10 minutes of sleep. You're going to get far more rest and rejuvenation in those 10 minutes than you would from 10 minutes of sleep. So If you got to lose 10 minutes of sleep, then do it. So there's really no excuse not to do, that one thing. So again, I don't know what all you're doing, but I would say don't reduce it if you can help it. Okay, and it's self-contained. So if you're spending a lot of time on the macrocosmic orbit at the end of it, that's not as important as going through the 9 cycles. Okay, I hope I answered your question. Cosmo Joe, question. So the soul is the source of emotion. The soul is the source of emotions like joy and hope and love. It's not the source of all emotions. The other emotions are reactions. We can get into that. Fear is a reaction. Hate is a reaction. Resentment is a reaction. Sadness is a reaction. Love, hope, I don't know what other, joy. Joy can also be a reaction, but it's also the state of the soul left to itself. So the soul is the source of emotion, and the mind is the matrix that connects it to the intellect. In which case is the unconscious child the instinctual aspects of the intellect? My head hurts already trying to figure out. Oh my God, you're overthinking it. Your intellect is now in full lotus. The mind is not the matrix that connects the intellect. The intellect is the software that allows the mind to interface with three-dimensional reality. The mind is beyond the intellect. The mind is beyond the matrix. In which case, is the unconscious child the instinctual aspects of the intellect under the surface? No. The unconscious child is our narcissism. There's 3 selves. There's the lower self, the middle self, and the higher self. The middle self is where the soul lives. The higher self is where we get information from. The higher realms, which is the pineal, people are asking the pineal. The pineal is the internet. It's the internet connection. It's the modem that connects you to the higher realms. It's an antenna. The lower self is the unconscious and the subconscious, and it is its own entity, and it is learning and growing. So it is a child. This is why Ganesha is a really good god to worship, because Ganesha is a boy with an elephant's head on it, and it represents the lower self getting higher knowledge. That's why you worship Ganesha first before anything else. I just realized that. That's why you do it, so that it aligns the lower self with the higher self. That's why it says even Shiva can't do anything without first getting Ganesha's blessing. You can't accomplish anything if you don't align your lower self to your higher self. So again, Cosmo Joe, I just want you right now to access the emotion behind your need to figure all this out with all of this intellectual question. You're far better off just feeling the emotion of needing to figure it out than actually me answering these questions. So go there. You're better. It's okay not to know. I want to give you permission. It's okay not to understand. I recommend that you stay in your feelings and stay in that fuzzy, empty place of the mind. Mind will help. When the intellect needs to come in, the intellect will always be there. We don't need to overtax it. But you can't really get too much of the mind. You can stay in the meditative state all the time. And when you need the intellect, it'll be there for you. Stop trying to figure it out. Having said that, I appreciate the question. Cameron Matt, question. What triggered or galvanized you 2 years ago to grow so much? 2 years ago? I don't know if I mentioned 2 years ago. Maybe you're seeing something I'm not seeing. 2 years ago, this is June of 2018, June of 2016. Well, June of 2016, I was with my partner who passed. And she was my soulmate. I used to call her my twin flame, and then I found out twin flame means something else. But she was my soulmate, is my soulmate. And she fixed a lot of those problems I talked about when it came to the programming that I got from my parents. Now, the truth is that throughout my life, there has always been people who have reflected back to me my true self. But we have to be able to hear it and internalize it. She, for whatever reason, because we connected and vibrated on that level together, when she looked me in the face and told me all these really wonderful things about myself, I could hear it. And I integrated it. And she was so supportive, and together we would come up with new things for me to do. And then she would say something or do something, or just by being with her, she made me feel so good about myself. I'd get inspired and I'd go off and I'd create a bunch of stuff. And, so that really kick started me into that. She also did things like say, you should get a bankruptcy and get yourself out of debt. You should do this, you should do that. And she came in and she did a lot of stuff. But the point is, she fixed all of that shit that my parents did to me. She helped recalibrate it. It's been tough because without her, when she died 8 months ago, what ended up happening is that I started regressing back into those old thinking. And it's been a lot of work. Because on the one hand, it's painful. Every time I think of her, then I'm aware that she's not here. And that's very saddening for me. But at the same time, I can still tap into the joy that I got from her and still get from her. And that takes a lot, that's I've got to go the exact opposite of what the 2,000-pound gorilla wants me to do, which is to stay lying in my bed watching Netflix all day, eating Cheetos and feeling sorry for myself. That would be the easy thing to do. Instead, I go and I go to my group of people who, I tell them what's going on, and I have other places that I go where I tell people exactly what's going on, and I tell them my fears, and I let myself cry, and I do all the unmanly things that, again, the 2,000-pound gorilla does not want me to do. So there's no doubt about it. She reset me on an unconscious level, and I would not be who I am without her. No two ways about it. I owe her that. And, if I want to honor what she's given me, and I think about this every day, I think about this. I think, how can I get the most out of my life today? Because it would be a waste for her to have given all that to me and then passed away, and then for me to just, dive into my, my narcissism and my depression and shit all that away. It would be a real waste. If I want her life to have meaning, at least for me, then what I can do is follow my own advice that I've been giving to people this whole time. So again, it's important to know that at some point it's going to come down to taking action. It's not going to be about how you feel. It's going to be about taking the action. Action is what the universe responds to. The universe sits there, and you can have all your feelings. You can have all of the, the mental aspirations and the, what are those things called? The affirmations. You can sit there and give yourself mental affirmations all day long, and the universe goes, I don't know what to do with that. Wait, he's moving. Oh, he's putting down a down payment for that apartment. Oh, he's going to go buy a surfboard. Oh, he's going to quit that job. Oh, he's going to ask that girl out. Oh, he's doing it. Let's give him what he needs. That's when it jumps into action. It doesn't jump into action before that. So if you're waiting around thinking, well, I'll do it when I find the money. I'll do it when I feel like I can. I'll do it when I feel, the universe is going to say, I can't write that check for you until you take the action. And you can take the action regardless of how you feel. Your feelings won't prevent you from taking the action. Feels like it, but they won't. So I don't know if I answered your question or not, but there you go. All right, let's see, where was I? A lot of talking. Yeah. Rami, question. Does talking with others about our fears and problems could be a reason to be manifested? It depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to a therapist or to somebody that cares about you, or some kind of a support group, I mean, that's a place where you should be able to talk about your fears. But talking about your fears means that your fears are going to come up and you're going to feel them. So what you're really asking me, if I'm reading your question right, what you're really asking me is, if I surrender to these fearful feelings, will they be manifested? No. If you're talking to others in the sense of trying to support them, like getting together with people and saying, yeah, who does this, and the government does this to us, and those people do that, and the this and that, and the aliens, and if you do this, and you got to be careful, and by the way, you need to tape up, put your thumb over the camera so that nobody can see you, because if they see you, they're going to get into your house, and they're going to get into all of your. If you're doing that, then you're going to manifest it. But if you're going to people and you're saying, I'm afraid of this and I'm afraid of that, and allowing yourself to become conscious of all of your feelings, that is not going to make them manifested. Talking about it in a way that justifies your fear is an action. You're taking action. Talking about your feelings is not an action. You're trying to get your feelings to your conscious awareness so that then you can take conscious action. But when you sit around with people, and smoke pot and look for all the bad things that are happening in the world and start talking about it, then you're going to talk to those people and you guys are going to take action in ways that aren't helpful to you. So I hope I cleared that up. Whichever side of that question you're on, I've answered both sides, so you should have the answer to your question. Question, how do I stop overthinking? You need help. Probably need to work with somebody like me. But your thinking is going to go off all the time, especially if you're having a lot of fears. But the first thing is to start, giving yourself, there's a really good mantra that the tappers use. The tappers, these guys who do this. They have a mantra, which is, even though I have this feeling, I thoroughly and completely accept myself. If you're overthinking, it's because you're trying to figure out a way to fix the problem. And you're overthinking, your brain is spinning and spinning because it's not finding a solution. Because you think, if I can just figure it out, then I'll be okay. So your brain is going overtime trying to figure it out. So the first thing you do is first you just accept that the universe wants to take care of you and that you have everything that you need. You will be taken care of. And then you can still be in fear, and your brain can still be going like it is. So just give yourself a break and just know that, okay, brain, say whatever you want to say, get it out. And then take action based on trust. It's the action that matters. You don't have to stop the overthinking. In fact, if you take action on your soul desire, your brain will probably kick in and your fears will kick in and you'll probably overthink. But just stop trying so hard to figure everything out and stop trying to fix it. And if it comes down to it, just imagine like a little 4-year-old of yourself and put yourself on your chest and imagine that little 4-year-old is thinking and crying, there's a monster in the closet, how do I do this? And just go, it's okay. It's okay that you're afraid. It's all right. Your feelings aren't going to hurt you. That's what parents do, right? A good parent, when the kid is saying there's a monster in the closet, parent goes, really? Well, let's see. And they'll open the door and they look under the thing and they say, come here, do you see it? I don't see it. And then just say, I'm right over there. I'm on the other side of the wall. Or do something, pretend like you're going to do something. Do something, okay, I did this now. The monster can't come back. They don't tell the kid that they're full of shit. They don't tell the kid they're stupid for having their fears. They acknowledge and allow the child to have whatever they're thinking, and then they reflect back their confidence and their experience, and that's what that child will take into their adult life when it's not the monster in the closet, it's the big mean boss that they have to do in order to get what they want out of their job. And they go, you know what, it's okay, there's no monsters in the closet, I'm just going to go ahead and do it and submit it. And they get successful, or they go on to what is that show called again? They go on to American Idol, and even though they're scared to death, they still go through and they do the song and they win, regardless of how they feel. That's what a parent is supposed to do. So, maybe your parents didn't do that. I don't know. So you got to do it for yourself. But anyway, that little mantra is, even though I have this feeling, I thoroughly and completely accept myself. I do it all the time. I say that to myself all the time. Sometimes I'm having a really tough time. Sometimes at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm really missing my partner and really scared. And what am I going to do? This thunder wizard thing is going to fall apart. And I say to myself, even though I have this feeling, I thoroughly and completely accept myself. And it gets me through that moment. And then I keep taking action. All right. Guy Boner, question. What is it? Is there a chick boner? I suppose there is, now that I think about it. It's a lot smaller. All right, sorry, I got sexual, forgive me. Guy Boner, question. What is your diet like? Do you avoid meat? Do you buy Alex Jones supplements? Okay, so first off, we don't mention any other teachers. We don't mention anybody, any other authors. It's disrespectful to me and it's disrespectful to them. I don't buy any of Alex Jones' supplements. I do not eat red meat, and that's only because my body can't digest it. There's some evidence that most people's bodies can't digest red meat, but I can't digest red meat, so I eat chicken and I eat fish, and that's just simply for dietary reasons. I eat a lot of chicken and fish, and I use pea protein, and I make protein shakes because I need a lot of protein. Other than that, I eat vegetables and fruit, and I just eat a healthy diet. If you're asking me that because you think there's some spiritual significance to being a vegan, there isn't. Unless that is your moral compass. If your moral compass says that you can't eat an animal because all life is precious, then you have to follow that. Having said that, I've known I'm 50-something years old now, and I've known vegans and vegetarians who become anemic and they become pescatarians. But I mean, you can eat grubs. I mean, you've got to, human beings are designed to eat, living beings, whether it's grubs or shrimp or fish or chicken or whatever. We're designed to do that. But there's no spiritual repercussions if you just eat normal human food. But there is a repercussion if you don't follow your own, your own moral compass. Grey Wolf, North Shaman 369 question. Would you say that not knowing is the final assurance you are already doing all you care to do? Would you say that not knowing is the final assurance you are already doing? I don't know what you mean by what is it that you're not knowing? So you need to finish that thought because I don't know what to do with that. If you mean not knowing what to do next, that's a good, if you're asking that, that's, you do what's in front of you and you do what you know you're supposed to do. When you run out of things that you know you're supposed to do, then stop and watch television or go hang out with your friends. What happens is people do everything they know how to do, and then they keep thinking about it and obsessing on it, and they spend 3 hours on the internet trying to figure this out and looking it up and overthinking it. You can only do what you can do. Then go out and enjoy your life. I mean, you got to have something that makes you happy. Find something if you don't have something. And then sometimes you have to force yourself to go do that. I'm not kidding. There are sometimes I have to force myself to go surfing. Where I want to stay home, inside, and I want to, go on the internet and obsess over who knows what. And instead of that, I go, you know what? I need to go surfing. I've got somebody calling in a couple hours, and I need to get some surfing in, and so I'm going to go surfing for 2 hours. And I'm going to be tired on the phone, and I'm going to be falling asleep, but it's so fucking what. So yeah, if that's what you're asking, once you've done everything you know how to do, and you don't know what else, then yeah, that's all you're supposed to do. Then you're doing it. You do what you know how to do. Okay, let's see here. Steve Travesty gives me $5. Thank you, sir. Thank you for the support. I appreciate that. Best way to support the channel, that is one way. Buying any of the services, the astrology services. By the way, you can save $100 if you go to astrology.thunderwizard.com. You save $100 on my normal price, but you can also save $100 from what I'm charging now, and get it from my apprentices. If you want to learn how to do astrology for me, astrologycertification.thunderwizard.com, and then you can have your own astrology business. And if you've passed the test, you can be one of my astrologers. But you can also go to thunderwizard.com and just subscribe at the $25 level, get all of the free videos. That's another way to keep this channel going. Donna Marie Q, I'm assuming you mean question. You can go ahead and write out the word question. Does pursuit of what brings you joy have a fine tuning as you continue, or is it the same from start to finish? I mean, I'm not going to say that there isn't a fine tuning, but I mean, my experience is that you know what makes you happy. For me, the fine tuning is which surfboard I want to use. I know I like surfing, but let's see, it's 2 foot out there, 2 foot waves, and it's kind of small and mushy. I better get a longboard. So now I'm going to obsess on which longboards I want to buy and which longboards I want. Oh, it's 6 foot and it's barreling. Well, I'm going to need my, 610 round tail tri-fin. I'm going to obsess over that, but it all makes me happy. So you know what your happiness is. If I ask you, what is it that truly makes you happy? And you say, I don't know. I know you're in conflict. I know that you've been trained to do something other than what you truly want. And when you are presented with following your joy, the 2,000-pound gorilla gets you in a headlock and says, you don't want to go do that. You want to go and try and be accepted by those people and do the right thing and be normal and be good or not be weird or whatever the hell it is. But you know what makes you happy. She goes on to say, helping animals/kids brings me joy. There you go. Still unsure how to have a livelihood from this. Well, don't try and figure that out. My mantra is make money doing what you would do anyway. Commit to that. You will find a way. Talk with people, but like I said, I've created a method of living. I don't think anybody's done exactly what I'm doing. I've figured it out for myself. So, and I just kept asking, how do I take exactly this and make money from it? But in order to do that, you have to be fearless about it and not care. People go, I feel stupid, and I did too. But when I'm asking people what makes them happy, lots of times they go, I don't know, I feel kind of stupid. It feels silly. It feels wrong. Well, that's a good sign you should do it. So you have to accept all of your feelings and all of your desires, whether they're silly or stupid or not. If it's silly or stupid, it probably means that somebody else hasn't done it yet and you can be the first. So if you want, again, working with me, career.thunderwizard.com. It'll take me about an hour, but I can probably help you find ways to do it. I can't guarantee it, but that's been my experience so far. Cosmo Joe, question. The 3 ones all exist within the mind, right? Yes and no. The mind, the 3 ones, live in the 3 centers. That's where they live. They come together to talk to each other in the pineal gland. That information means nothing. You don't have to do anything with it. But they come together and they talk, and then they split up and they go back to their centers, and then they come together and they talk. I'm going to talk about that when I teach the method of holding the 3 ones. Keep on the lookout for this. You can look this up. There is, if you can find it, if it's still in print, there's a book out there. But the question is being able to understand all of the Chinese Taoist symbolism. Most people can't. But I'm going to be teaching an updated version of that soon. So keep your eyes open for that. Which is this, by the way. That is somebody who is holding the 3 ones. And it is my belief that that's how we become ascended masters. By mastering holding the 3 ones, we will then either phase out of existence or not be reincarnated, and we will become one of those beings that sits outside the realm of the earth, as we call them, ascended masters. Called them elves in my ancestral tradition. They were called the light elves. And they hold the 3 ones and they intend their perfect reality, which is your perfect reality. And by tapping into them, they teach you how to become like they are. All right, let's see, where was I? Donna Marie, question, clarification. I have many ideas, but yet have not found the vehicle that feels right. Yeah. So it's there. You just have to, here's the thing. Don't try and figure out ahead of time what the perfect business is. Go out there and start doing it. Just start charging people. It's as simple as that. You like teaching kids? Put up a website and decide how much you want to charge to teach people's kids. Come up with a name. It's that simple. Just put yourself out there and say, I do this, and I teach kids this, and I blah, 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 and I'm putting together this class or this whatever, and this is how much it costs and who wants to sign up. It's that simple. There are people out there waiting for what you have, but they can't give you the money to learn from you until you offer it. Just do it. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to know it. You're going to make mistakes, but the truth is your soul knows exactly what to do. And you'll figure it out along the way. And you'll make mistakes, and nobody will ever know the difference, and they'll be happy to pay you. That's how it works. It's only if you doubt yourself, and you take action on that doubt. That's the only thing that stops you. Guy Boner, question. What are your thoughts on psychedelics? So go and watch my video on is marijuana poison or whatever. So you're new to the channel, so go watch my channel. I talk about it all the time. I've got a video that talks just about psychedelics, but it's under the marijuana. I forget what the title of it is. Power plants and marijuana, something like that. So anyway, you'll find it if you look for it. Have I ever smoked DMT? I'm not going to answer that question. Because whether I have or haven't is irrelevant to the fact that you can create it if you do this. Go to qigong.thunderwizard.com. I will tell you this, if you smoke DMT, whatever experience you have, you are weakening your pineal and your pituitary. And you want to do something to strengthen it. When you do real energy work, you don't need any external chemicals, and any external power plant psychedelics will be far inferior to what you can create simply by closing your eyes, breathing, and you'll know exactly how to turn that on, and you'll go places you could never go with any other power plant or psychedelic. But the difference is that you have to put the time and the effort and the discipline into doing it, and you have to refrain from doing all the other stuff because you're at cross purposes with yourself. So you're new to the channel, so I'll give you a break on that, but spend more time. Again, here's the bottom line. If you're new to the channel, read my books, watch my videos. If you really want to benefit from this channel, that's where it is. The Q&As are great, but without actually putting the work into binge watching my channel or going onto the Thunder Wizard channel and following all the videos step by step, or reading the books, and or going to the, let's see, videos dot, I can't remember if it's videos.michaeldenny.com or videos.thunderwizard.com. I can't remember which. You go there and you see all of my DVDs. That's where all of the stuff is. Do the exercises that I put out there. All of the talk is meaningless if you don't do the exercises. Okay, so that's all. All right, so there's no more questions that I can see here. I'm going to take a short break and come back, and we'll wrap this puppy up. So I'll be right back. And then the last thing, if I were to put a number 6, which is the final gate, the final door, is that when you are at that final place, and this is a continuous thing, it's not like it happens just once in your life. It continuously happens every time you bump up. Then what will happen is that you will have to be forced to do the opposite of what it is your 2,000-pound gorilla unconscious is telling you to do. The way you know that it's your unconscious is that it causes a tremendous amount of fear. So, for some people, going and quitting that job, asking that girl out, buying the car, creating the business. You can come up, a lot of people do this. They come up with all these great ideas for businesses, but when it comes to actually putting it out there and asking for money, that's too much. I'm too afraid to do that. I don't think I can do it. I'm not worthy. I'm no good, blah, blah, blah. You can have all those feelings all you want. The only thing that people care about is, are you giving them an opportunity to take you up on that? And for that, you have to say, here's what I do. It costs $100 an hour or whatever. That's my thing. And would you like that? If so, click this button and buy it from me, and I'll do it for you. Just put yourself out there. It'd be the scariest thing that you've ever done. That's the final thing. When it comes to working with teachers, that's the tough one because at some point, if you aren't taken into, well, I'm not doing it and I don't want to spend the money or I don't have time or whatever bullshit excuse comes up in your head, then it will be, oh, he or she doesn't like me, or I don't like them, or they've changed on me, or they're bad people, or something like that. I'm talking from experience on both sides. I've had students, numerous students throughout whatever. At one point, some of them have completely flipped out. They've decided that I'm a really evil person, and told me I've done some, things that I haven't done or thought. Some of them don't get so intense, but they decide that there's something wrong with me that they don't like. And again, good. Now you see me as a human being, and now you realize it's not about me, it's about the teaching. Follow my direction and do the teaching. I don't care how you feel about me. If you haven't been doing the work, why is that a good enough reason to walk away? You think about that for a second. The thought process is, well, I haven't been doing the work, so I'm just going to quit. The solution to not doing the work is doing the work. So instead of giving yourself an excuse and beating yourself up and say, I'm a failure, I didn't follow through, just go, well, I know that I'm looking for reasons not to follow through, so instead I'm just going to go ahead and do it. And all you have to do is do it for today. Tomorrow is another day. For today, do it today. If you haven't done it, do it today. Okay, I'm going to go spend the 10 minutes or the half an hour or the 3 minutes. Some people can't even find 3 minutes. They can't even find 3 minutes to meditate. I say, well, do this for 3 minutes? I don't have 3 minutes. You don't understand. I have kids. I have this. There's always an excuse. But do the opposite. And sometimes you need a teacher to help you with that. So, speaking of which, there will be more certification programs coming out. I really, I want to be able to get this teaching and this message to as many people as possible, and I'm going to need your help to do that because I only have so much time in the day. But, one thing at a time. The first one is we've got the astrology certification.thunderwizard.com. Let's see, is that up here? Nope. Astrology.thunderwizard.com, but I've also got astrologycertification.thunderwizard.com if you want to help with people. Anyway, and if you don't know what kind of astrology I do and how I believe that is, essential. In fact, if somebody becomes my apprentice, the first thing I do is I look at their chart. I get their astrology. That way I know what planets and what deities want to help them. And I help them find practical ways to get that power. So anyway, enough of that. I've kind of run out of stuff to say, so unless you guys have more questions, I'm going to go ahead and shut it down for the night. So I'll check and see if there are any questions here. Let's see, I don't think so. Nope, doesn't seem to be any more questions. So I'll go ahead and shut it down for tonight. Again, what the movie Dune, fear is the mind killer. I think it says fear is the little death or something like that. But it really is, and especially with the understanding of what we call mind. It's very true. Fear, it's impossible to be in the meditative mind and be acting on fear. Listen, this is my intellect giving you precise words. Acting on fear. You cannot act on your fear and be in your meditative mind. You can be in your meditative mind and be full of fear. That's okay. But taking action on your soul, taking action on your soul has nothing to do with how you're feeling. It has to do with your conscious awareness. So that is all for me tonight. Again, no more questions. I'm sorry if I did miss your question. I'm sorry about that. Again, that's why I prefer that people, even anything. I mean, there's somebody here, I'm looking at one, I won't put out a name. He's got a paragraph, he's agreeing with me and saying good things to me. That doesn't help me because I want to get to the questions. Don't, try to avoid putting anything other than a question because then lots of times I miss people's questions. So that you'd be helpful. But again, it is what it is. So there you go. All right, now I'm babbling. And again, wish me luck in my new place. This is looking from the west. So if you were to turn around where this is and look directly west, you would see the ocean rolling in. And you'd hear live music down the street because there are bars that play live music. And it's pretty fucking cool, man. Okay, that's all for me tonight. Catch you guys next time. Yeah, I'll try to stay on. If there's a little bit of radio silence, it just means that I'm in the process of moving. But I don't think it should be a problem. In any case, that's it for me. See you next time.